All names and locations have been changed for anonymity. We live in a world with many diverse habitats and ecosystems, and within them are millions of different species that have adapted to their specific environment. Humans have had the unique ability to adapt to different environments by working together and using the resources around them. One of the most harmful, confusing, stress-inducing, and rigorous ecosystems that a human can adapt to is the middle school. Over the past few months, I have observed 8th grade students in their natural habitat, as they have acclimated to the environment over the past 3 years. During my investigation, I observed 3 key patterns of the students in relation to their specific middle school environment and how they relate to their peers and content. My time was spent at Chapman Middle School, which is located in a more isolated area as it has its own side street connected to a fairly busy road. Even so, there are many houses in the vicinity of the school. At the closest major intersection, there is a shopping center with restaurants and shops, but it doesn't appear to have a large impact on the students, as they wouldn't be allowed to leave the school grounds during the day. Also, not too far away, there is a high school which occasionally interacts with, but not on a regular basis. The town where the school is located is primarily white, 80% or so, with the rest being primarily Hispanic or Latino. They have a median income of $100,000 per year and a per capita income of $60,000 per year. About 60% of the population are adults between the ages of 18 to 65, and over 80% of the population are living in a family or communal households. The school itself is a one-story building that houses 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. It is a very long building with one main corridor, and it has a parking lot to match. The building is divided into 4 sections, one for each grade and the cafeteria. The long hallway is lined with classrooms and lockers, and dispersed throughout the school are some common spaces where students can collaborate and study. It has about 660 students total, with a student-teacher ratio of 16:1. The minority enrollment is about 47%, slightly lower than the state average, and is primarily Hispanic. Their math proficiency is notably lower than the state average at 29%. It is in the top 50% of schools in the state when looking at test scores. It also is a feeder school into the nearby high school, which is known for their engineering program. At Chapman Middle School, I observed and interacted with a classroom of AVID students. This program aims to support traditionally underrepresented students in both their current coursework and their academic futures, whatever those may be. Within the classroom, students would typically be split into 4 groups by the teacher to work on tutorials. During this time, students were expected to collaborate with their peers to discuss STEM problems that one of them would present. This activity is designed to allow the students to learn from each other and teach each other. This is tended to be more of a structured environment compared to other activities because they would need to fill out a worksheet before which they would use to present their current work on a problem and any questions they would have about it. They were also supposed to complete the worksheet during the class, taking notes on the discussion about the presented problem. Besides the tutorials, these students would also spend their time working on projects or other school-related assignments. During these periods, students would typically collaborate in smaller groups of 2 to 4, whether they are partners for a project or just friends wanting to work and engage with each other. These experiences were much more informal compared to the tutorials, as the students had much more authority in how they want to use their time. My observations at Chapman Middle School led me to notice 3 key themes that relate the students' patterns of engagement to their learning environment. One pattern I observed is that students appear to interact with each other more when working in less formal environments, such as their projects, compared to their structured tutorials. This change in learning environment gives the opportunity for the students to collaborate more than they would otherwise. I also notice how the students' familiarity with the math and science concepts appears to influence how much they interact with the content and their peers during the tutorials. Finally, I notice that changes in the school's environment and policies from the last year have allowed my consultant, a student of color, to express that they have a better sense of belonging at the school, which has given them better opportunities for learning. While I was only able to interview one student, others may have shared similar experiences last year. The first pattern I noticed was how students appeared to interact with each other more when working in less formal environments compared to the structured tutorials. Even though educators can have more authority and try to encourage the students to work together, they can't force the students to participate. In my very first tutorial session, no one initially wanted to present their problem. After a few minutes, someone volunteered to present, but it was difficult to get the rest of the group to participate. Only one of his peers took the initiative to help solve the problem. I asked questions to the rest of the group to try to get them involved. They would reply, but wouldn't continue participating, returning to whatever they were doing beforehand. The fact that it was our first time working together could have impacted how they engaged during that period, but they were still hesitant to work on these problems together. In another tutorial, a student was more eager to present their problem, but the rest of the group did not participate on their own initiative. Some of the students may not have initially recognized the problem since they were in a different math class, but it was still related to what they were working on, and they were capable of contributing to the discussion. I did need to call on students and ask some leading questions to have them participate, but they are able to still make meaningful contributions. During my other tutorial experiences, some groups did collaborate more, but there tended to be an initial hesitation to present or participate. For some of the AVID classes, we did not work on tutorials, and instead, the students worked on groups, projects, or school assignments. During these classes, the students would immediately split into their groups and start collaborating with each other. These periods were much less structured than the tutorials, and the tutors would move around the class talking to different groups and supporting them if they wanted help. One drawback to this was that not every group was spending the entire period focusing on the work. Some groups would spend their time just talking to their peers or using their computers in ways unrelated to the project. I would ask them about their work and offer them support, but I would not force them to work. Even so, they did not need any outside encouragement to engage and share ideas with each other, and they would at least do some of the work during the period. It has been documented how differences in learning methods and environments impact how students engage in school. AVID tutorials aim to use inquiry-based learning by having the students present their problems and collaborate as a group and teach each other the content while the tutors facilitate the conversation. This gives the students a lot of authority to control the conversation and how they would like to work during the class. This also means that the students are accountable for how they spend their time. In theory, this is a beneficial way to learn compared to traditional learning, where the teacher maintains authority and the students are expected to behave and give correct answers because they're given access to their peers' ideas, and sharing these ideas can promote a student's competence. In practice, AVID tutorials have no innate incentive for students to engage with the group outside of an inconsequential participation score. Tutors can try to encourage the students to work together, but they cannot force its students to participate. When students are working on projects, they clearly want to collaborate, but they are given even more authority, and the tutors are even less accountable for the students and how they use their time. Effectively combining the two learning environments by retaining or even improving the students' accountability for contributing in tutorials, while still giving them authority over their class time and incentivizing them to collaborate without any external persuasion, would give the students better opportunities to learn. The school should try to continually iterate on the learning environments to test what would work best for the students and give them the best opportunities to learn. The second pattern I noticed is how the students' familiarity with concepts in math appeared to influence how much they interacted with the content. Having students separated into math classes that learn at different rates can influence their self-perceived ability, making it difficult for them to collaborate with each other. During one of the tutorials, a student in an upper-level math class brought a problem that his peers had not seen before. This made it difficult for the rest of the group to engage with the problem. I tried to encourage the students to help with the problem once it was turned into a form they recognized, but they were still hesitant to give input. Even in moments when the presenter admitted there was a mistake in his work, the group tended to defer their ideas to him. Eventually, a student who hadn't yet participated offered an idea of where they might have made a mistake, but the presenter was initially dismissive of that idea. I attempted to assign competence to the student by repeating his idea to the rest of the group and asking them to focus their attention at that section. As a result, the group threw out a few ideas and eventually discovered that the presenter had made a minor mistake keeping track of positive and negative signs. This was something that any of the students could have recognized on their own, but none of them spoke up until I, an authority figure on this topic, reinforced one of the students' ideas. After that point, there was much more collaboration as the group helped update the problem with the new numbers. In a similar situation as the previous example, a girl hadn't worked with a specific math concept that was being presented. When I asked for her thoughts on the problem, she stated that she did not recognize the method being used and did not initially engage with the group. Once the problem was fully written out, the group recognized that they had made a mistake, but they weren't sure where. Again, I attempted to include her, but she resisted, saying she wasn't much of a math person. I pushed her to recognize any part of the problem, but she was hesitant to speak up and appeared confused. I then suggested for her peers to explain what they were trying to find. She was familiar with finding the intercept of a line and described her experience with the topic. Even so, she didn't believe her knowledge would be any help because she only knew a completely different method to solve the problem. I attempted to assign competence by having her describe to the group the method she would use, graphing the two lines. While she still couldn't help with the specific method, she was able to see the problem in a different perspective and help double-check their work. This resulted in the other students recognizing where they had made a mistake in their work. For the rest of the period, she participated more and offered her ideas, even if she didn't know the answer. Both of these examples showed the positive impacts of effectively assigning competence to students who discount their ability in math. Students might discount their ability for many reasons. Schools can misinterpret a student's ability and quote-unquote motivation in math, resulting in them being placed in a lower level class and enforcing the idea that they are not as capable compared to their peers. There can also be implicit biases towards a student relating their identity based on cultural and societal beliefs. Assigning competence gives these students the opportunity to break away from their beliefs of not being a quote-unquote math person and give them a more confidence around their ability and potential for learning. A paper on mathematical competence and status, What Being Smart Means, by Alana Seidel-Horn, illustrates the importance of how students' opportunities to learn in math is impacted by their competence and status. A student's status is influenced by many factors. The social nature of the school indicates that peers' perception of a student's ability can heavily impact their status in a classroom, which in turn can improve or limit their opportunities to learn. Schools also tend to track previous math achievements to inform which class they should be placed in. This can enforce incorrect beliefs about a student's ability and widens the achievement gap, because advanced math classes tend to have better instruction and more resources. Teachers have also been shown to view and treat their students differently depending on the level of the class because of their preconceived notions of the student's ability. The tutorial examples depicted how the students in higher level math classes had more status than their classmates, which impacted how the rest of the group engaged with the problem. While assigning competence has positive impacts for students, a more sustainable solution would attempt to address the root cause of disparity in math and a student's status. The school can work towards this goal by creating norms around status, shifting student dynamics, and facilitating more equal status interactions between the classroom. The school can also change how they assign students to different math classes. Instead of tracking previous achievement in their perceived ability in math to designate which class a student should be in, the classes should give equal access to similar resources to support and accommodate the students' specific needs. There will always be a gap in students' performance, but giving equal access and using methods such as complex and culturally relevant instruction can help reduce this achievement gap. The final pattern I noticed was that changes in the school's environment and policies have allowed Alex, a student of color, to express that they have a better sense of belonging at the school. Stereotypes towards a student's identity, whether overtly stated or implicitly believed, can hinder the student's academic performance and feeling of belonging. When interviewing Alex about her experience at Chapman Middle School, she expressed a clear distinction of her attitude and relationship towards the school between last and this year. Last year, there were many times that she did not want to go to school. Due to a lack of leadership and oversight, a lot of people of color did not feel safe. Alex added that there was a lot of racism in the school and a lot of bullying and fights. This year, the school has hired new principals, and they have massively helped improve the school culture and environment. They were able to accomplish this by being more present in the day-to-day operations of the school to enforce policies around behavior and how students should treat their peers. This has allowed Alex to enjoy her time at school, feeling more confident to focus on her academics and be herself. During my time tutoring, the groups I worked with have always changed, so I've gone to work with all of the students. While working on the tutorials, there appeared to be no obvious correlation between the students who tended to participate in the class and their apparent identities. While I did not spend enough time at the school to gain an adequate amount of data to speak to any long-term trends in the class, I believe their participation was more closely related to their status and familiarity with the content. Even though some students would participate more than others, there appeared to be no imbalance of power when students of different backgrounds and identities worked together. The students would work with project partners or friends from different backgrounds, and they're even more collaborative than in the tutorials. They seem to collaborate with and include everyone in their groups. It is hard to say if everyone has an equal voice and which implicit biases affect that. But everyone did contribute to the work, and there was no apparent racism as described from last year. Implicit biases related towards identity can hinder a student's belonging and in turn impact their engagement and performance in school. Claude Steele described in his book, Whistling Vivaldi, how black students at the University of Michigan had consistently lower grades than other students, and how that was not entirely due to their weaker skills and less motivation. Steele's interviews with black students revealed that they are very aware of their status as minorities, as they tend to interact with other students of similar race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic backgrounds, and they are worried that their peers and professors would see their academic abilities as less than. He suggested that the students' underperformance is influenced by stigmatization related to their identity. Those students felt pressured not to confirm any stigmas related to them, which ironically results in them underperforming and perpetuating these stereotypes. While the school has done a good job at reducing explicit racism and creating a safe space for students, there is still more that can be done to improve the achievement gap with minorities. The school can improve minorities' performance and feelings of belonging by following Pedro Nogueira's suggestions from his paper, Jacquin's Dilemma. He described how educators should debunk stereotypes and break down separation based on identity. Teachers can ensure students won't self-segregate by mixing the students into different groups. The AVID teacher did this well when assigning students to their tutorial groups. The school should also encourage students to pursue activities that aren't traditionally associated with members of their group identity. Finally, teachers should incorporate culturally relevant information into the coursework in class to help cultivate a better sense of belonging. My experience observing and interacting with the AVID students at Chapman Middle School was very informative and gave me a positive outlook on education in the U.S. While there are many issues in the education system, improvements are being made and continually worked on. If the school takes these recommendations into consideration, the students' learning experiences will only improve. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the AVID Middle School experience.